Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Sales B12. I'm Caryn Kopp, and I'm with Jack Daly, and this is the only dose of sales, the one that you don't want to miss. Today, we're talking about how to prepare an objections manual to help you overcome the most important objections that you face. Jack, take it away.
So it's always funny when we get to do these, Caryn. They're not rehearsed because we've been in the game for so long, and it's spontaneous. And I listen to this. Oh, we're going to do objections, and I'm going, well, you wrote the book on it. I mean, literally, I met you when you provided me the book on objections that you wrote and said, hey, if you're comfortable, could you do a testimonial? That literally was the first of our beginning relationship more than a decade ago. So if anybody knows this space, it's you. Look, here's the thing that I would tell you that you couldn't anticipate before you get there.
Right.
And if you buy into that, then I would also tell you, then there's no reason to not be better prepared for damn near anything that goes on a sales call. And so the top salespeople don't like me to say this, but it's true. They are canned. They say the same thing the same way each time they encounter a certain situation. The beauty of them is they don't sound canned. It sounds like it's the very first time you've ever said it. So here's the good news. Mentally, an awful lot of sellers think that there's a million objections or infinite objections out there. The reality is there's very few. And so I say this, if you're going to get prepared for objections, put them into a playbook, let's do it real simple. Identify the top 10. If you can get to 10. Some of my clients in building their playbooks can't even get to a legitimate 10 objections. I challenge my audiences to get more than 15. No audience has ever gotten that task done. So if there's less than 10, why not figure out what those are and then figure out the best 2 responses for each one of them. And how do we find those best 2 responses? Get your salespeople involved and make it a collective effort. And don't take the first answer or the first 2 answers that are given. Challenge every word, challenge it, practice it, and before it gets into playbook, it has to earn the right in the playbook. If you did that with just 10 objections and taught your salespeople to do that, you're off and running. So that's where I go.
Yeah, well, that's important. You say the 3 Ps of objections are practice, practice, practice. And I say there 3 Ps also: pre-think, prepare, and practice. So we end up in the same place. But if you can pre-think these objections, what they are, you can also pre-think the answers. And I always say also that language plus delivery equals outcome. Language plus delivery equals outcome. If you have the right words, and as you say, people are canned and they're delivering it as if it was the first time, you will get the best outcome. A couple of things when it comes to putting together this section of your playbook, just my 2 cents from my perspective. After you make that list, then it's time for the CEO to take a look at that list and let everybody know when it's okay to give up. Because sometimes when people will hear, I already have a contract for that, and some salespeople will be like, okay, I'll call you in 3 years. When the CEO wants, no, you roll up your sleeves and you get in there, because if there's a contract for that, that means there's a big enough deal going on that there's a written document for that. Let's get in on that. And there are certainly ways to do that. Just because someone has a contract doesn't mean that they're happy with their current vendor. It doesn't mean that they can't exercise an out. It doesn't mean that just because they're buying that one narrow thing that they don't need something that's ancillary to that. So this is the time to get in there and ask these questions along with the contract renewal date, who the decision makers are before the RFP is submitted, so that you don't have the ability to speak to the decision makers about what they really want. So the CEO, whoever is a leader in the organization, gets to say, here's when I'm okay that you give up. And that everybody else has to follow that. A lot of times people forget about that. The other part is to make sure that you are tracking the objections that you're facing. if 75% of the time you're getting the objection, I'm not interested, well, maybe you're not saying anything that's all that interesting, or maybe you're not talking to the right people. So what is the diagnosis there for reducing the number of times you face that objection in the first place? If you change the target or change the message or even change your offering, do you eliminate that objection? People often don't think about that, but this is the time when you're putting that playbook together to think about that. Let me just stop there and get your impressions on that, Jack.
I'm sitting here, Caryn, and look, this is not about B12 is not about promoting you or me. This sounds so self-serving on your behalf, but I sat here as a former business owner, CEO, and I said, listening to just the last 3 minutes of your pitch there, I just sat here and said, I need to call you and talk to you more about this. Like, it was so obvious with such specificity that this is an arena that you own. You know your stuff here. I felt that way when I read the Objections book that you put together. How long ago was that?
12 years, something like that, 15 years. Yeah, long time.
And I'm sitting here just as befuddled in terms of how knowledgeable you are in this arena, right? So I'm going to take the ball back from you, and I want to tell the people listening that let's just put the playbook aside for a minute and talk about some things that are really, really essential here. 50% or more of success at selling has nothing to do with the playbook, quite frankly. 50% or more has to do with our attitude. And if attitudinally we believe that we're just going to get hammered with objections and we will fall short, then don't make the call. You're not prepared. We can sniff out whether a salespeople is unsure of whether they've got the goods. So you have to find a way to get your head in the right shape that says, there's very few objections as I'm coming in here, and we've identified the majority of them, and I know the best responses for it. And I'm going to open the car door and go through that front door of that prospect, and I'm going to nail this deal. You've got to have that self-talk with yourself in order to be effective at a sales call, right? Here's the second thing, and it's again in between our ears, and that is that objections are actually buying signals. And once I understood that, it made dealing with them that much easier. Disinterest or apathy is the worst thing that you can encounter as a salesperson. Objections are actually the prospect saying, I would like to do business with you if you could solve this. And if you could solve this, I'm good to go. And so again, if you're prepared and you're mentally there and realize you just haven't done a good job of telling them that you are the solution. And so you've got to figure out how to be that solution provider. If you're the solution provider, it's game, set, match. You're done.
Right. And then you never have to let an objection get in the way of your success. Absolutely. Well, this was an awesome episode of Sales B12. Did you cover everything that you wanted to cover, Jack? I want to make sure.
I'm there. Other than I need to call you back and get more intel from you.
All right. Well, that's awesome. I always love talking with you. Well, thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Sales B12. And I invite you to listen to the other episodes and get even more content to help you sell more in less time and be happier in life.